discussion, as I just mentioned, at the end of the day, the topic for the same is role of leadership in DevOps. I request all of you to please drop in your questions at the Excel Intro stall that is right outside the hall. We would like to address your questions in the panel discussion that we're going to have at the end of the conference. So with that, it is now time to get energized and network with other attendees as we now take a break for 15 minutes for a networking break. Please make sure that you come back 15 minutes from now. Now, remember one thing, ladies and gentlemen, before you leave, please listen. After the networking break, we're going to break this hall into 3 tracks, okay? Track 1, track 2, and track 3. And track 4 is going to be at the junior ballroom right outside the room. So all of you have the agenda for the conference. So each of you, whichever session you want to attend, whichever track you want to attend, you can just go to that particular track and attend the session. So please remember, this is track 1, track 2, track 3, and track 4 is going to be at the junior ballroom. And to the DevOps India Summit 2019. I'm your host, Riya Kumar, and this is track 2. So for all the people who are confused which track is where, this is track 2, that is track 1, and that is track 3. And track 4 is in the junior ballroom, right outside this hall. All right, so without much further ado, let me introduce our next speaker for the day. He is somebody whose name resonates globally with every member of the DevOps community. With over 40 years of experience in architecting, designing, developing, and managing high-performance solutions for IT and engineering framework globally, he has authored DevOps Continuous Delivery Architect course and the DevOps Test Engineering course for the DevOps Institute. Apart from being a regular DevOps blogger for DevOps.com, he is also a senior member of the IEEE and has been awarded 2016 Most Outstanding Engineer by the IEEE. He is currently working as an independent principal consultant for DevOps. And today, he's going to give a detailed walkthrough on DevOps in the cloud, from chaos to continuous improvement and beyond. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my utmost privilege to now invite on stage our next speaker for the day. Put your hands together for the one and only Mr. Mark Hornbeek.
Thank you, Ria. Really appreciate being here. How many of you attended the workshop yesterday or didn't? How about we didn't attend? Okay, so quite a few did not see it. So this is the same material pretty much. If you did see it, then it'll be a repeat, but obviously a shorter version. I'll be talking a little bit about the topic of cloud and DevOps because I think they're largely inseparable in some ways. But I'll also be introducing a book that I'm publishing, should be available in October, called Engineering DevOps. It basically reframes DevOps as an engineering discipline with a step-by-step engineering solution. And I'll talk about why I did that. I was here last year, helped organize the first DevOps India Summit. Since then, I have some news. I actually moved from California, Los Angeles area to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, and that's my new persona in Mexico. So if you know, oh, that's actually spelled wrong. CEO Develops. And that's my house in Puerto Vallarta. I have a DevOps sign on my door in stained glass, and those symbols are on one of the inside doors that have meaning to me. In the book, I integrate the concept of, I don't know if you know the story of King Arthur. I don't think it's as popular in India as it is in, let's say, Britain, Canada, or the US, but the idea is that there's a chivalrous, king that sends his knights on a mission to find the Holy Grail. And behind the scenes, there are several components. So the round table represents the idea of equality in people. So that's people representation. The castle is the castle of Camelot, where King Arthur set down some laws, which is process. And the sword is, it's called Excalibur. It represents technology. So people, process, and technology equals the Holy Grail of DevOps. That's the idea. I also have an announcement just 2.5 weeks ago. got engaged with Virginia. So that's my big news. And frankly, it's distracting right now. I would rather be back there with her. No offense to you guys. I'm looking forward to meeting her again in Mexico City on Wednesday. Okay, so what's the talk about? Obviously, I can't go through an entire book worth of material in something like 20 minutes that are remaining, but I'll touch on certain topics at a very high level and then encourage you to get a copy of the book or talk to me afterwards. So we'll cover, what is engineering DevOps? Why is it important? How do you engineer people, process, and technology for DevOps? How do you engineer application pipelines and infrastructures? You'll notice I don't use the word cloud, even though this is DevOps and cloud, because as I mentioned, I find cloud and DevOps are, in many ways, at least when you get into best practice level, somewhat inseparable. And then I have a 7-step process that I've been using in my consulting work, and I'm putting that out there as something that other folks could use if you want to orchestrate your own DevOps transformation. And I guarantee the process works. If it doesn't work, come back and I'll give you a refund or something if you buy the book. And finally, what is the future of engineering DevOps beyond continuous improvement? How can you learn more? I'm going to zip through this pretty fast. What are the benefits of DevOps? If you ever studied the State of the DevOps report that comes out every year, essentially it breaks down into 6 categories of tactical benefits. So the primary one is typically agility, to try to accelerate the lead time from code check-in to at least preparing and delivery, if not actually deploying it. And then, agility, stability, efficiency, security, quality, satisfaction. These are all goals at a high level, tactical goals. They break down into more specific goals. There's about 20 specific goals that I use in my consulting practice, and I try to get alignment around those goals before you get too far into a transformation, because I find that's often the fallacy and the mistake people make. They jump into implementation without really getting alignment around their goals, and then they wonder a year and a half later why they didn't meet their goals. They didn't have any, or at least they didn't have consistent ones. Frankly, that stuff is not as important for the business as the business goals, the strategic benefits. If you do these things, you do get competitiveness, innovation, high company valuation, longevity. That's the holy grail, basically, of DevOps, to really accomplish that. It doesn't happen in one step of the journey. These DevOps transformations typically are multi-year efforts and multi-million-dollar efforts, but if you do these things properly, according to engineering best practices, you will get those benefits. So what do I mean when I say engineering DevOps, and why is it important to DevOps? I'm sure a lot of you had some experiences just trying to understand what the heck is it? I mean, how do you do it? I typically work with senior management, executive level management, a lot of other engineers as well. In fact, one of my sons is a DevOps engineer and an SRE in a company in San Francisco. And there's, even in Silicon Valley, if you ask 10 people, how do you do DevOps, you're going to get 10 different answers. It's really frustrating to me. And I'm trying to get, at least within the world of engineering DevOps, something a little more concrete that we can at least agree to within that context. And then people that are saying they're doing DevOps, they're not necessarily getting the results that the goals implied. Why? Well, the truth is DevOps is complex. Big surprise. I'm not here to tell you that what I have to say is going to make it all that simpler, but I can organize, I think if you follow the instructions, it'll organize the effort to get the results that you want over time in a step-by-step systematic way. There's basically 3 axes of DevOps variations. Applications are different from one application to the next, even within a company. The application stacks and various other things. Pipelines, the way that the continuous delivery pipelines are put together can be different from one app to the next, even within a group of apps. And the infrastructures that are, that those things run on are also variations, even within a company. I've worked with lots of Fortune 1000 clients, and they often have in excess of 500 applications, some of them much more, and there are a lot of variations there. So don't expect to have one solution that does it all. That's for darn sure. There's also multiple levels of maturity. When you say, do you have DevOps? Well, at what level? So it's useful to define the level of maturity that you're at so you can kind of figure out where are you now relative to where you want to be against the maturity curve so that you can then map out a solution. And it amazes me how many folks just dive in without even thinking about that. It's kind of like taking a trip without having a map or a GPS. You end up meandering all over the place. And lots of things a lot of gas has been expended, but you don't really get anywhere. So there are also, there's no prescription, there's no installation guide, user's manual for DevOps, there's no standard definition. So it's kind of frustrating for a lot of folks that are trying to do DevOps, or those that have DevOps and are trying to get the results that they invested in. This mic seems to be going in and out, is that right? Or is it just my ears? I'm not sure why, because it's strapped to my head. Anybody know why? Seems like when I turn around or something. Anyway, pardon? Maybe if I just keep looking forward, I guess, because I know we're short of time. On my website, www.engineeringdevops.com, I posted some tools. When the book gets published, estimated end of October, then it'll be loaded with a lot more tools. I actually have a database of engineering practices that I'll probably expose about that time. The tools are basically blueprints. I mean, if you talk about engineering, the first thing you want to have is a big picture for whatever it is that you're doing for DevOps itself, but also the different major parts of DevOps. So there's lots of big pictures that you can kind of relate to. And then the recommended engineering practices that go with those pictures, some tools, spreadsheets, templates, calculators, things of that nature. And some instructions for how to use it, basically. So that's all going to be published. In general, engineers like to have tools, and these are not going to code anything for you, but they will help you in your journey to find out what is the right DevOps solution for you and how to get there and orchestrate and manage the process of getting there. This is just an example of a blueprint. This is what I would say is the biggest picture blueprint for DevOps and cloud. It's complicated, but the general idea is the top half of the blueprint is the stuff that deals with people, process, and technology at that high level. Not so much, the lower level stuff. It's making use of the lower level data that are coming from, applications, infrastructures, and pipelines. So things like value stream management, application release automation and orchestration tools, governance, security, reliability, site reliability, disaster recovery. Those things I claim, are the higher levels of DevOps. Frankly, a lot of organizations haven't even considered them yet that are doing DevOps. They haven't got that far yet, but there are certainly plenty that have as well. And at the lower levels, that's what I think a lot of people still think of as sort of the traditional DevOps, a CI/CD pipeline. Everybody's pipeline's a little different, but that's the core of the technology, at least, for DevOps, and underneath that, various infrastructures. So that's kind of a big picture blueprint for DevOps. And again, you'll see on the website similar kinds of blueprints for other topics. I coined this idea of 9 pillars of DevOps as a way to help you break down your current state, basically do assessments and maps on future state. The 9 pillars are listed here, leadership, culture, design for DevOps, continuous integration, continuous testing, continuous monitoring, continuous security, continuous delivery, deployment. Those are distinct pillars. That doesn't mean that they're completely, there can be practices that overlap for certainly, but I find that as a convenient way to break down, DevOps and understand where you are now, where you could be. They're concrete enough that you can use them to build an valid engineering plan, as opposed to some of the other assessment methodologies I've seen that were a little more informative but not concrete enough. So this can actually help you to understand, are you doing DevOps, and whether or not you can, whether you're doing it well enough to get the values that you expect. Each one of those pillars, by the way, has 3 dimensions. So there's people, process, and technology dimensions. If you cross-product the 9 pillars in 3 dimensions, you get 27 things. So I claim that there are 27 critical success factors that you need to consider in order to implement any one maturity level for DevOps. And that's the complexity that I was talking about. You have to deal with it. I mean, people say it's too complex. Well, sure, lots of things are complex. You want to get the kind of value that we're talking about, you're going to have to deal with the complexity. You're going to have teams that do understand those 9 pillars and the 3 dimensions of each of them and really figure out what you want to do at any point in time. It's somewhat like a 3-dimensional chess game to put together a solution. There's no point in running ahead to get, let's say, maturity level 5 for, I don't know, monitoring if your testing is still back at maturity level 1. You're kind of wasting your time on the monitoring because you don't really have a DevOps solution that will hold together. So the idea is to try to, put your investment pieces in a plane that will allow you to step your whole DevOps environment logically forward from early maturity levels to more mature environments. So I have a definition for engineering DevOps. This is one that I actually put out there on my blogs, and I got pretty good response, so I'm sticking with this. You can have your own definition. It doesn't really matter that much whether you use this one, but definitely if you're going to do DevOps, you should have one for your organization. Otherwise, it's really, not really easy to articulate, even amongst your own teams, what the heck is DevOps. It's a little frustrating. So my definition is, it's the application of lean engineering practices. In other words, the continuous flow, feedback, and improvement, which are the so-called 3 ways of DevOps in Gene Kim's Phoenix project. And to what? Well, to the 3 dimensions, people, process, and technology. Why? For the benefits that you're trying to accomplish, basically, that we talked about. So that's my definition. I'm sticking with it. You're welcome to have a different one, but have one. That's the point. In terms of maturity levels, again, this is the way I've defined pipeline maturity levels. I define maturity levels for each of the 3 axes, so applications and infrastructure and pipelines. Again, you can have different definitions, that's fine, but have one, because otherwise you don't know where you are and you don't know where you're going. You need a roadmap. And whether you use mine or not or something else is totally fine. But basically, at the beginning, you've got chaos. You don't really have a pipeline at all. The next step is you generally try to have a continuous integration environment that works before you worry about speeding up delivery. And really, DevOps level 1 sort of starts at the next one. It's really the first time when you've got an end-to-end DevOps process with the first way, continuous flow, and then you can improve it with more instrumentation and feedback, and finally the level of continuous improvement where you're just using all flow and feedback to continuously improve your DevOps environment. And this is for any one application, right? The same thing can be applied to all of your different applications separately. Again, this is my chart, but you're welcome to have your own. I encourage you to have one if you're going to try to map out a DevOps roadmap in the cloud or otherwise, to know your current state, define in some concrete, measurable terms what it means to be chaos for each of the 3 dimensions, people, process, and tech. Once you have defined that, and you can then decide where, for any one application, what is its current state, and then you can try to say, well, what state do you want to be in, and then start plotting a solution to get there. I get this question all the time, does my application warrant DevOps? Does DevOps even apply? So I would, without justifying it too much in this short meeting, I just say, yeah, DevOps can apply to any application, but whether you should apply it is a different question. They're more like business factors that would determine whether you should. I mean, I have it on the website, there's a scorecard to help you decide to what extent any particular app can benefit from DevOps, or whether it doesn't make sense to use DevOps. DevOps does require investment in time and maintenance even, it's a thing. So if you have an app, for example, that's never going to change, why the heck would you invest in all of that? And I've actually seen organizations try to do that. I was part of an assessment where at the end the senior vice president stood up and said, why did we assess this product? Did you guys in the room know that we just ended life this product last week? So the project manager was taken outside, and I don't think I ever saw him again. This is just another blueprint, but I brought it up because I just wanted to make the point that, we talk about pipelines, but it's really a federation of pipelines, especially as you get more modern with all these different, approaches. Data pipelines having to be coordinated with different microservices or other components of a product if it's an N-tier system. The coordination of pipelines becomes really important, and the idea of having federated pipelines that are coordinated is getting really more and more important. That's going to be increasingly so. You'll see when I talk about beyond level 5 DevOps. These are just the 5 levels of application maturity that I talk about. Starts with spaghetti code. We've got all this code, but it's really unorganized. And finally ends up with applications that were really born in the cloud. I think I'm going to die in the cloud myself, but eventually. Hopefully not anytime soon, for Virginia's sake, if nobody else. But I'm committed to DevOps for life. I think I'm the only guy that has the DevOps tattoo on my arm. And Virginia's asking for one too. So she's committed. She's getting committed. That'll be part of our marriage vows, I think. The point of this chart is, everybody talks about microservices. You don't necessarily have to go to microservices. You do need to have some of the benefits of microservices. Some of the frameworks allow you to do that. All I'm really espousing is be intelligent, use the tools, think about it. Don't just go off and do something because it seems as possible or maybe cool. DevOps is complicated. There's a lot of ways you can waste a lot of time and money, right? Be aware, there are 27 critical success factors for any one application, for any one maturity level. That's a lot of stuff to keep track of. Don't go running off and just having fun. Have the fun that's more directed according to what you need at any one point in time. There's a lot of CI/CD tools in the cloud. Azure DevOps we heard about this morning. It's a great tool. I run it all the time in my consulting practice. All of these tools have pros and cons. And interesting, the pros and cons tend to be complementary and mirror images of each other. Any one cloud vendor, it's great that they are supporting the tool chains in the cloud, but there's the possibility of getting locked into that particular vendor. On the other hand, if you try to do your own, then you're faced with the problem of ongoing maintenance on your own. So again, just be intelligent, weigh what is the best solution for your organization. Most organizations are in the process of moving from data centers, private data centers, into hybrid clouds and then multi-cloud. Pretty much everybody's claiming they're using multi-cloud, but really what they're doing is they have multiple clouds with some people using different ones, but they're not really orchestrating harmoniously across the different clouds at this point. But as that happens more and more, it's going to get more and more important to have orchestration and DevOps capabilities that can treat all clouds equally, and it's going to be more and more important that the cloud service providers can somehow provide equal services, if not identical, over time. This is a funny blueprint for the infrastructure itself, of which cloud is part of. I think the desired infrastructure is a black box, right? Most of the developers don't really want to have to deal with the pipeline or the infrastructure. They just want to develop their code and have it work and have it deployed. But under the hood, you've got some key capabilities and characteristics. Generally speaking, the reason you have cloud at all, I would claim I've been using cloud for 47 years. Because in grade 10, which was a while ago, we had a timeshare, APL timeshare, and in some ways that was a cloud. So I was making little programs in a little town in Canada using a timeshare computer in Toronto. Yeah, it's come a long way since then, but the point is I didn't really want to have to know how it all worked. I just wanted to write my program. Same is true now. right? Same thing, different day, in some ways. But under the hood, you want to have resources that can come and go efficiently and not get tied up. If you have a small workload, then you only want to deploy what you need and get rid of it when you don't need it. And the ideas of idempotency, to be able to very easily configure something and reconfigure it consistently each time, and the idea of immutability, where you really have things pre-configured and you just bring up a new one or destroy one a lot faster, so a la containers and all of that sort of stuff. The engineering DevOps has a lot of practices associated with these things, but all I'm trying to say is, even though we're talking about DevOps in the cloud, really from a designer's point of view, developer's point of view, which is really the ultimate user, right? They don't really care. They want that all to be invisible. Behind the scenes, there's a lot of code to make this work. Infrastructure is code, so no matter where you are in the pipeline, you want to be able to bring up an environment for testing, for building, whatever your task is at that moment, and a lot of capabilities that are needed to support that. So orchestrating the environment, automating the tasks, and making it easy to administer, doing all that at scale and speed. Keeping track of the code itself, or the infrastructure as code, is rather critical. And this is something I get really frustrated about in my consulting practice. I run into all the time is you get halfway through an assessment and you find out that there's something very fundamental missing. Like the company hasn't got in place disaster recovery. All of a sudden the assessment stops and you go off and solve that problem instead. So there was some value, but it wasn't what was intended. And bear in mind, infrastructure as code is something that has to be version managed. I already talked about this, I'm going to skip it. There are maturity levels for infrastructure as well. It's very similar. Ad hoc, I call ad hoc, and then private data center, hybrid, multi-cloud, and then multi-cloud services are things like function as a service and some of the more sophisticated things that different cloud service providers are trying to use to differentiate each other, which of course has its own problems when you're trying to come up with a multi-cloud solution that's consistent across the different applications. Okay, we're at the point where this is the magic formula for how to do DevOps and how to get it right. I've got it coined in one slide, so believe me, there's a lot more to it than that, but all I'm going to say about this in this short talk is start with visioning. Get leadership alignment. If you jump to step 2 without that, you're asking for trouble. I've seen plenty of projects that go off and implement things without getting support from leadership, and instead of getting the award at the end of the year, people get fired, or at least their project get canceled. You do want to get leadership alignment, and there are tactics to do that. Bring in a consultant if you have to. I'm pretty cheap, but that's key. I mean, the other steps are get alignment at the other levels of the organization and with the specific goals. I'm not going to go through all these details here. Assessment, really understand your current state, future state, roadmap a solution, and then implement the project. Implementing a project is not just having something working, it's also putting in place the training, the governance, all the deployment, and the metrics. Operationalize it is really keeping track of things and making sure that you got the feedback and controls for governance. And finally, expand the solution across the enterprise. I'm a strong proponent of not boiling the ocean. Pick a model application, really zoom in on that, get everybody to buy in. That's the model application. It's not a political thing. We just all agree that that group is the model, and we all share the benefits of that, rather than saying, oh, they got an investment and I didn't. So that's a key part of alignment. Okay, what's the future? I've only got 36 seconds for the future. It's a short future. There's a lot of factors, right? I mean, that are at play here. Federated value streams, microservices, database ops, 5G, cloud, becoming more ubiquitous, even though the cloud service providers tend to want to differentiate each other. IoT, I'm not going to go through the whole list. Obviously, AI. The point is that a lot of the commonality in terms of what these things are affecting in terms of applications, pipelines, infrastructure have to do with the idea that you've got a more distributed, highly distributed, more interactive environment coming down the pipe, if you like. And there are more and more possibilities for new bottlenecks, new ways of improving bottlenecks as well. So my prediction, as DevOps the Gray, is that there will be new opportunities. The pipelines themselves will have to be orchestrated more and more as federated pipelines. Everything's going to get more cloud optimized. And if you look beyond maturity level 5, continuous improvement the third way, I'm predicting that there will be a 6th level, which instead of being continuous improvement will be continuous autonomous improvement, because the only way you're going to keep up with all that data that's going to get generated is a lot more use of AI and machine learning and normalizing the data. Once you have all of that, the system can start improving itself. So I think that's on the horizon. I don't know what the time frame is, but I see signs of that at some point there probably will be a maturity level 6. And I'm just calling it continuous autonomous improvement rather than continuous improvement. We're literally timing out. I encourage you to get a copy of my book. You can just sign up on my website to be notified when it's available. This is the website. As I said on the site, there's lots of tools and description of some of the services I offer. I'm now an independent consultant and I'm looking for work anywhere in the world. So if you have any needs for a senior consultant, let me know. At least buy the book. And that's it, guys. There's probably very little time for questions, but I'm glad we got through the deck. And the full deck from yesterday's workshop is also already on that website if you want to download it. It's available.
All right, thank you, Mark, for that wonderful session. Let's have a big round of applause for Mr. Mark Hornbeek for that power-packed session, along with his great sense of humor. He actually made us laugh all throughout the half an hour. All right, before we go on for the Q&A, I would request, Mark, do you have any questions that you would like to ask the audience? We have some prizes to give away.
So 2 questions, and you can answer. And whoever answers, these 2 people, give your email ID to Mark. Those 2 people will get 2 free copies of that book.
That's a really good prize.
So the most pressing question that I have this year, which I had last year as well, is what is the best way to solve Delhi belly? It has nothing to do with this presentation, but it's certainly pressing on me at the moment. That's kind of a joke, but it's true too. So what I asked, since most of you were not in the workshop, we'll ask the same 2 questions yesterday. So who knows what the 9 pillars of DevOps are, or at least 7 of them?
You can take the mic.
I can't hear, and I can't see either because the lights are like unbelievably bright.
It's leadership, continuous delivery, and culture, employment.
No, okay, keep going. That was the same as delivery.
Infrastructure, management, it's under leadership.
No, not quite. Anyone? I can't see anyway.
Continuous security, continuous monitoring, continuous delivery, leadership.
Anybody else? I'm looking for at least 7.
You have to tell all the 7.
7, at least 7.
At least 7, yeah.
I can't. I didn't hear what he said already.
So continuous testing, continuous monitoring, continuous security, elastic infrastructure, continuous integration, continuous delivery or deployment, and
one more, just one more.
design for DevOps.
Continuous feedback.
No.
Leadership.
I think he said that one already.
Leadership was already told. Somebody else? Here.
So leadership, continuous integration, continuous testing, continuous monitoring, and collaborative nature, and collaborative culture, sorry. and then continuous security.
6.
One more.
Just one more. We almost got it.
Okay.
There's 3 more. You can get one of them, I'm sure.
Design for DevOps.
Design for, yeah, okay. There you go. Perfecto.
But a big thank you to all you guys for helping him out. Wonderful people. I just love the sharing. DevOps is all about sharing. We can see that today. All right, can we please have you on stage? Okay, you're going to give your email ID too, sir. Okay, fine. Let's have the next question.
Okay, so tell me 5 maturity levels for pipelines. At least 4 of the 5. How about that? 4 of the 5. Good.
All right, amazing. Let's have a big round of applause for him as well. Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, before I invite sir on stage, please leave your feedback for this track. This is track 2. So if you want to leave your feedback for Mark, please go to slido.com. Enter with the hashtag DOIS19. Choose the hall as track 2 and leave your feedback for Mark. We need all of you to give your feedback. We need to see, how well you are receiving this forum, this conference. We need the feedback so that we can do more and more improvements every year. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's have a big round of applause once again for Mark. And now can I please request Niladri sir to please felicitate Mr. Mark Hornbeek with a certificate and memento.
Oh, that's nice. Is there a big check in there?
Inside.
It's big. It's only $2, all right? Excellent. Thank you.
Well, Mark, I hope you like this. Yeah, I can see the happiness. Well, he looks very happy, especially because he's getting married in a couple of months from now. Let's give a big round of applause and let's congratulate Mark for that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, before we move on to the next speaker,